Welcome everyone. Nice to have you here on my channel. Well, it's now 1 week since the Canadian elections, and wow, has something been put in motion. This is quite amazing, to say the least. Something really big, which has already taken on quite a momentum, as you probably all know. Well, I said it would be a difficult but profoundly positive new beginning. That was my forecast for what the outcome would bring on the 28th of the elections, and it was definitely different from what I expected, but still this makes total sense if we look from a bit of a higher perspective. Yes, first of all, it definitely was a disappointment, particularly for Western Canada. As you can see here on this map very clearly, Alberta has 92% conservative, Saskatchewan 93, Manitoba 50, and British Columbia almost 50. If we take the other parties which are not liberal, then it's actually here a majority which is again not liberal. So to say, first, naturally, this result has been disappointing, and that difficult thing that was the Chiron influence, which was very strong, is very strong, as transiting Chiron in 24th degree of Aries is exactly conjunct the Canadian ascendant, which based on the rectification I did for the chart, which really resonates completely with what's going on right now. And then the natal Chiron in that chart of 1st of July 1867 is in the 27th degree of Pisces. That's where the present north node is, the evolutionary direction. So it was very clear this would be a Chironic thing. And Chiron is the good doctor who points to the cause, who finds the right diagnose, in that sense uncovers the problem and allows it for a natural healing to start. And that's exactly what happened here in Canada. Something looming, looming is the wrong word, really. It's something kind of underlying, silently, dormantly present, has been broken open in a very big way. Now, if we go to astrology now, and I just want to maybe show you one more thing, because it's really big. You can look this up. There's many places on the web. So, and then tomorrow, Monday, Daniel Smith will, that is our Premier of Alberta, will give a public speech at 3 p.m. if you want to join in and really get first-hand information on what the plans are. Interestingly enough, as you probably know, just one day after the elections, which had many irregularities, which were reported from multiple places, so that is also a big concern here. Aside from that, Daniel Smith announced that in Alberta the limit would be dropped from 20% to 10% of voters to having to sign a petition for a referendum on any cause, on any subject really, but naturally this is the dormant issue here, that Alberta particularly, who has all the natural resources pretty much, who's kind of supporting the whole eastern Canada with billions and billions of money being sent over there from our revenues. Anyway, that's kind of the imbalance which those of you who are kind of new here might have to understand, that in that sense, yes, we are a minority population wise, but we provide a lot of nourishment for the nation as such. So this is out of balance, has been for the last 10 years, as Canada pretty much has been blocked from selling its resources, making a profit of it, being really strangled in many ways. So this has been building. This is a kind of a looming, something which, as I say, so it seems to be a great day to look deeper into this, because right now we have a heliocentric Hygeia Uranus conjunction, which is about allowing a healing to happen in a whole new way with a revolutionary approach. And interesting, we have again this exact Moon Mars aspect, this time a conjunction. You remember 2 weeks ago I said that would be a super intense and important week. It was that when Mars and the Moon had a perfect opposition here. The Moon at the time was here in the 1st degree of Aquarius, and Mars in the 1st degree of Leo. That was exactly at the waning half moon, which really was the underlying energy which brought us to the place that there's this tied up force. The Moon and Saturn, the Moon and Mars naturally is the populace stepping forward, people starting using their voices and saying what they think, having the courage in Leo. Valor is a big word, Lord of Valor, that is the lordship Mars has in Leo. So this 8th degree of Leo, I really wanted to look this up, and it's quite amazing. This is a communist activist spreading his revolutionary ideals. That was the image Elsie Wheeler, the psychic, was receiving when she was not knowing which degree she was forecasting. It was all double blind in that sense, but that was the energy she picked up, which is what's known today as the Sabian symbols. Anyway, a revolutionary activist spreading his revolutionary ideals. How much more fitting would it be to what's going on here now in Canada? And just to tease you a little bit, there's quite a few charts I'm going to share with you today, so hopefully you really have the time to listen from beginning to end, because it is really an amazing content I'm offering today. You will be stunned if you stay. Hopefully you have the time, otherwise just split it in two. Anyway, what I want to show you here, this is the midpoint chart between the Declaration of Independence in 1776 and the Canadian birth chart. And here Mars is in Leo, in the 9th degree of Leo. So this already is resonating, building up towards this Mars return, which will be exact in heliocentric very soon, and in geocentric sometime in early July, actually on July the 3rd, which again is kind of between the two dates, July the 1st being Canada's birthday, July the 4th being the United States, the Dependence of Declaration of Independence birthday, naturally, which set the whole thing in motion. Anyway, I found this super interesting, that this resonates with what's going on right now, and as we are building up towards that becoming a really big topic. I mean, it's still building. Now BC is considering to think about a referendum to Saskatchewan, our neighboring province, and as I say, even Manitoba might join in, and then pretty much the bigger part of Canada, all the western part, would want to move in a different direction. That's the potential. And literally that sovereignty thing is interesting, because first and foremost we are meant to become sovereign beings in our own right, each of us, and then this should be the seed for a sovereign community. That means within whatever your neighborhood, that you would have the sovereignty to produce your own milk, to sell your own vegetables without any one coming and saying, well, you can't sell whole milk, things like that. You have to first whatever follow all these rules from someone 2,000 miles away or so, who has no real connection with what's going on locally anyway. And then the next is naturally the provincial sovereignty, and then the state sovereignty, and then the continental sovereignty in a way. And that's where we are moving. This is the seed which has been planted for the reunification, the reunion of North America. That's why I chose this title for this video. So to give you the kind of the idea of how I'm thinking, let me just read something I wrote here as a Facebook comment. Things are moving fast, and yes, that's where things eventually are going, toward sovereignty and unity. I keep saying split and deprived of crucial resources. Canada as a whole nation, minus Alberta, will have no chance of surviving on their own. So whether they want or not, eventually they will have to come along. Let's see how long they can go with their net zero green energy over there in the east. And then, it's total. It has no hand and feet, as we say in German. It's just some woke ideas which still are hanging around. So whether they want or not, eventually they will have to come along. This is a success story in the making, and that's again linking into what I said. It will be a greatly successful outcome of this election. A little different, yes. It will be a success. This is a success story in the making, and it will become the first really positive example of a world without borders, a reunion of land and cultures that were one for thousands of years. Just think about that. Canada is only 150 years old around, and the United States 250 years. So before that, that whole continent was one piece. There were no borders, and that's where we are getting to again. That is really the light at the end of the tunnel, to become a beacon, a shining light of a true example of how to live in a world without divisions. Now, I was really quite blown by the charts I did come up. So first of all, I want to quickly go back here to the Canadian chart. This is the base chart, July 1st, 1867, with the 24th degree of Aries Libra as the horizon, the first 7th house. And then I said it already there in my recording on May 1st, that was just a couple days later, we had that lunar return, where the moon came back exactly again to where it was in the original chart at 2858 Gemini. And when that was the case, the ascendant was exactly 90 degrees from the natal ascendant, and I would say this would be a big direction shift. Something that all of a sudden looked differently than one originally had been seeing it as. And that's exactly what happened. I'm sure all these politicians who already were celebrating their victory, they really got set back when they realized what they had really triggered with that outcome. Anyway, that was just a little illustration of that. And again, you see here Chiron, here the 24th degree of Aries. Okay, now it gets interesting. Now I did the midpoint chart between that Canadian chart and the Declaration of Independence, which kind of is the relationship chart between Canada and the United States as such. Where they touch each other, how they interact. The exact time space midpoint of these two dates brings us to January the 2nd, 1822, and the geographical location is exactly between Ottawa and Pennsylvania, Philadelphia and Pennsylvania. Now I have said it right. So that is how it's calculated. A powerful tool as such, works in every relationship, really shows you where we meet and where we are having issues. So this chart is extremely positive. That is the first thing I want to say. It's very harmonic. We have the Sun and Moon Jupiter Saturn conjunction here right at the 9th house, which really shows that openness to a new creation of something way bigger than we can imagine at that point, in a beautiful grand trine here with Mercury and the South Node building on a tradition, on something which has been growing on this continent for thousands of years, bringing that in a beautiful harmonic balance in fire signs. Then we have this exact Sun Palace conjunction, which actually is the degree of Canada's midheaven. See, 1118, it's a little hard to read here, 1118. So this made me come back to a thought which I had many years ago. Here you see it again, 11. If you look at the map of North America, kind of looks like a head, a face, which this kind of is the main part of your face, the eyes, the nose, whatever, the mouth, and then up here you have the hair, the brains. Anyway, I don't want to really expand on that. Naturally, brains are everywhere, but it is kind of that inspiration of the north, that vast nature reserve of water and untouched boreal forest, which has a purity in itself, which literally is what we in Canada are. That's the main reason we are here. I mean, we definitely do enjoy the warmer weather as much as anybody else, but it is that closeness to nature which really, you can feel it. It's vibrant, and that's kind of the spirit, the brains, the hair of Canada. Naturally, this resonates so much with this Palace Sun conjunction. Actually, the Sun being in the opposite sign of their two parents, so to say. Both the United States and Canada have their Sun in Cancer, naturally, 1st of July, 4th of July, as you probably know. And that midpoint in the opposite sign gives it a real grounding. It's a, as I say, there's so many beautiful things in this chart, and maybe it's even more visible in the heliocentric of this moment. Neptune, Jupiter, ascendant in a grand trine. Neptune, Jupiter is the vision for the future, something to dream, something in a new existence. Also Uranus, Jupiter, ascendant, because they have a Neptune Uranus conjunction here in the first degrees of Capricorn. That was actually a really powerful time in history as such, as you probably know. And South America, particularly the year 1821, 1822, around, there were many revolutions which still are the foundations of today's governments. Many nations were born around that time, gained independence, and it kind of would fit in perfectly that the North American continent as a whole, I mean, sure, I'm not yet including Mexico, but in a way, if again you look at the map for a minute, it's kind of, where is it hiding here? Is it Mexico is more kind of the throats, the neck and the throat. Anyway. So that is a very powerful grand trine. Naturally, Saturn included here. Jupiter, Saturn in Aries, they had their conjunction in that year, 1822. And as you know, every 20 years, Jupiter and Saturn have conjunctions. That was the last one in fire, in the element of fire. And then from there on, from 1840 on, all the following conjunctions every 20 years were in the Earth sign. So every 2 centuries there is the same sign as a basic building block for societal progress, you could say. That is Jupiter and Saturn conjunctions. They have enormous impact on that. We just now have come out of that Earth energy. 1981 was the first conjunction of these coming 200 years in air, which really was the birth of the information age in a way, of ideas and thoughts, and the sharing of information becomes so much more important. Yes, we had a setback in 2000 when the kind of like a retrograde. One more time we had a Taurus conjunction into 2020, and then since 2020 now into 2200 pretty much all conjunctions of Jupiter and Saturn will be in air. So anyway, this one was still in fire, and fire is inspiration, intuition, is the creation of something completely new. Then we have also this beautiful configuration. This is again the heliocentric of that moment of exact midpoint between the two nations. Heliocentric Venus Mercury opposition here, also beautifully zooming in on the ascendant in that first degree of Virgo, which in itself, I mean, Virgo is one of the richest signs. It is harvest season. The vegetables, the fruit are ready. It's that time of the year. After the strong heat of the sun, everything is now ready for eating, for harvesting, for being enjoyed in its fullness. Also, if we overlay the 64 hexagrams, this is hexagram 59, which is dispersion, and on the other side we have 55, fullness. So this is one of the most spiritual axes of the zodiac, if you want. That ability to experience fullness and allow it to be dispersed in a natural way. It's like it's the wind over the water which disperses the water, which turns it into something vaporous. So it is that transition from a more solid phase into something way more, well, I don't really want to say evolved, but refined in a way. Yeah, there's so much more in this chart. Also, this beautiful quintile configuration. These are the green aspects. Mercury, Eris, Saturn, this shows the potential for creative thinking in new ways. And if we go back to the geocentric chart, which naturally is how things finally express. So again, here you see that the node here in Aquarius conjunct Venus, so it's all about coming together as a society in harmony, supporting one another, really activating and sharing these powerful resources out of that Leo vault, if you want, that ability to stand in one's power, sovereignty, a really big word for Leo. The Aries moon. Pioneer spirit. There's so much more I could say about this chart, but let's keep going. What I then did, I overlaid the Canadian chart here first with the midpoints, this potential reunion, that final step of really tearing down all the borders, really getting rid of that 49th degree, which, yeah, as I say, I mean, for thousands of years this was no division. Actually, each of the native nations had their own territory, but they were, sure, there were some skirmishes and things like that, but overall it was open land. You could go where you wanted to, and that's how it should be again. And naturally, if everybody gets supported and enabled to live in abundance where they are, then all the so-called refugee problems, they would disappear too, because naturally, first and foremost, people love to be where they grow up. That's where they have their friends, that's where they have their relatives, all their social connections. They speak the same language, so it would be natural for people to stay where they are once we have allowed them to be happy in the place where no artificial crisis is invoked to trigger such problems. Anyway, let's look at what this reunion would mean for Canada. And first and foremost, you see that Moon, Jupiter here right at the ascendant. So it would definitely be a great blessing in many ways of expansiveness. I mean, just think, as a Canadian, you could go anywhere in the United States for holidays. You would have no problem with different money. It will be all the same value. And I mean, it's true. I mean, Canada has no military really, so we rely on the United States for military protection. This alone should really make it clear that we are already part of that big nation in many ways. Yes, we might not have been really been given the right position, maybe as 51st state. This is a little bit understatement. Maybe we should be honored more. I don't mind to be the 51st state as a whole nation, though. It's more kind of the rhetoric here. It doesn't really matter in the end. We are two big brothers, if you would like to say. You could also say sisters, whatever you like. And as you see, yes, the midpoint Sun here at 11 degrees Capricorn, as I showed you before already, here in the center of the chart, which really would give Canada great honors to act as that authority in a way, of oversight, of high moral values, of justice, of everything being structured in the really like a snowflake. I get that picture with Capricorn a lot, this crystallization. So we can help the whole continent to become more crystallized in a way. So you could take a screenshot and look at this chart by yourself a little more. I mean, there's many other things I could point out. Just want to say one more thing. The same Mars here in Virgo. Yes, this really great work ethic that definitely will come handy. The opposition with Jupiter, which at times can be a little bit either too good to be true, or also kind of a little bit overcharged, as whatever planet Jupiter is linking up with gets amplified. Jupiter in Pisces, by the way, is really a good placement. It's one of the great energies we have here in Canada. It is that inner generosity you will find here, and people are extremely friendly with one another. So let's move on to the United States as they are right now, what they would benefit from that unification at first, how they would feel it, how they would perceive it. And what stands out here is Jupiter again here together with the Moon and Saturn on this very critical point in the American chart where Chiron sits, the 21st degree of Aries, which I have pointed out multiple times. This is one of the real big issues the American nation is just about now getting serious of resolving, of removing divisions, cultural divisions, racial divisions, political divisions. We have to come together as one and not allow this to be inserted in society, that people are played out against each other. So this definitely could be healing in a very profound way, with Canada becoming involved. After all, Canada is known as also the peacekeeping nation, has been for many decades. Just lately, sadly enough, has been compromised. Beautiful also here, I forgot pointing that out, I just have to go back here quickly. So no, that's not correct, sorry. Okay, I thought I had missed something. But what else stands out here? Well, that Sun Palace conjunction, which we just saw, was in the Canadian chart high up on the 10th house as being their obligation of how they contribute, is here at in the first house, but of the American chart, which means we can have definitely a direct impact in the I would say in the persona, in the subjective experience of the continent as a whole, the Canadian influence will be really, really strong. That is very clear here. A trademark, you could say here, particularly also with the Uranus conjunction. That is the specialty of the American nation. You see, it's a very close Moon, Uranus, Sun conjunction here in the third house, the house of Gemini, of ideas, of this is a very abundant world of ideas which are linking in with history, with tradition, with where we come from as a race, as a Cancer is the Akashic records, almost you could say, where everything is stored. It is the lineage we come from. So Canada in that sense is really having that grounding, I guess that's the best word to say, to use here. Now, I did the secondary progressions because I was just curious, and of this chart, of this midpoint chart. It means one day after birth, in that sense, that was 1822. Every year since counts for one day, and that brings the progress sun here from 11 degrees in Capricorn here to the first degree of Leo. Now look at this chart. I mean, it's exactly the opposite of the base chart. Here you have first degree of Virgo rising, and now we have the pretty much the first degree of Pisces rising. It's just a little bit shy, actually. I did do the math here, and I just want to tell you quickly how this will unfold over the next while. First of all, it's super interesting when you know okay, I forgot to include this chart. I really have to show you. This is was quite a surprise, actually. It kind of proves that my chart rectification probably is correct. Look at this chart. This is Mr. Donald Trump's birth chart. 2955 Leo is his rising degree. And what do we have here in that midpoint chart? Just some 40 minutes of arc pass in a very close conjunction with Mr. Trump's birth chart. So he seems to be really playing the role he was meant to play in this big drama. I mean, he's an archetype in many ways. He was born on a lunar eclipse, a total lunar eclipse. So he has that archaic power in a way, and naturally he's a character in many ways. But he is doing an overall great job of serving from a place of true. It's something true which comes through. I cannot help myself. That's what I feel. And it's amazing the resonance you see. Then when you go into the progress chart again, see, it's pretty much dead on, exact the same degree in the progressions for that 28th of April. Yeah, and as you know, I mean, has been debated and mentioned by many different commentators. he was really the grey entity there in the background who was kind of triggering the Canadian nation to vote the way they did. He created that. He used his his reputation, I would say, and naturally, as it played out, and he probably knew that exactly that's how it would play out, that they would generate fear, make Canadians afraid of whatever, and then create that outcome, which then would trigger something which we now know what it is. It is the independence movement. It is the sovereignty which has been suddenly coming to the forefront. So it's really super interesting also with Juno being here at the 4th house cusp, pretty much exactly, which also is the American nation's natal ascendant, 13 degrees and 13 minutes. So there's many things which come together here. I did a little timeline here as I wanted to mention. So by progression, actually I should show you, as I have it here animated. Let's just go to where we are here right now, 28th of April, and then we go here by, let's say, by weeks. Then you see within 2 weeks means, let me go by days, then it's more exact. You see on May the 15th, that's just whatever, 10, 12 days away, the progress rising changes from Aquarius to Pisces. So watch out for the change in collective mood around that time. Also the Jupiter square here is getting exact soon. Before that, yet the 00730 is an important juncture. That's where a new hexagram starts. That's where we get into hexagram 55 and 59, which is the natural nodes for Canada. Let's just go back there once more. See, Virgo and Pisces. Virgo North Node. But even more so, let me see, where did I see that? Okay, yeah, there's so many repetitions here. Anyway, it is that axis which is activated, and then okay, I'm jumping around here, sorry, I'm sorry here. Let me just go back and keep going what I wanted to share first with you. So yeah, mid-May will be interesting to watch for a shift. Then around June 15, another shift. So it's going really fast, and already one day after the elections there were 196,000 people who had pretty much online mentioned taken part in a petition, I guess that's what it was, if they would be supporting a referendum. So yeah, it's pretty much a given fact at this point that this will happen, and the date which has been given will be likely the 20th of October, which is when municipal elections are already scheduled here in Alberta. That would be kind of easy to add on that vote in for the referendum for independence. First of all, that has nothing to do yet with what I'm expounding here. That is just a few levels after that, but as I say, this is the seed which has been planted. That's where we are going. And yes, the great attractor is here at 1423 in Sagittarius. That is a great magnetism which comes out of that point in the cosmos, that direction. Astronomers have observed that all the the neighboring galaxies of ours, and ours included, they're converging towards that point. So if we go ahead in history, let's say billions and billions of years, that's where everything will end up. So this is interesting too, and this is actually quite congruent with the American nation's ascendant. Shows again that powerful pull toward that nation in a worldwide way. Everybody on this planet pretty much is dreaming of immigrating to the United States. That's definitely a known fact. At least to me, it's something I grew up with, having lived in Europe for the first 42 years of my life. Okay, but it keeps building. So then it's actually on October the 2nd. Let's just move forward fast. Here you go. Yeah, just move here. July, and then August, and then September, and then October. Okay, on October the 2nd, the ascendant is 039. Now, why is this important? This is exactly the degree of the base chart, just the opposite signs around. So this is when there's a natural what's the word here? A complementation. It is perfectly balanced in a way. October the 2nd that will be, and then just a few weeks later, on the 22nd actually, and you remember I mentioned the 20th of October as being the target date. On the 22nd, the moon is, okay, let me go back, it still runs. Okay. 044 Pisces, 044 Gemini is Jupiter here. So this is yes, this just shows that there will be a big limelight on that issue worldwide in that time, and most likely that referendum will pass, being accepted as put in power, that the politicians are then meant to start working on a possible solution. And as I say, it's possible that by then already BC and Saskatchewan and Manitoba also have joined the ship, and this becomes really a big movement. Anyway, the last cherry on the cake I want to share with you is the midpoint chart between Donald Trump, and that midpoint, we have been using the Declaration of Independence with the Canadian chart, the midpoint time space brings us to 23rd of March 1884, and again you see that same axis. And as I showed you, this is Trump's birth chart, 25th degree of Taurus, Scorpio, the 25th degree of Taurus, Scorpio, and then naturally here in the again the same degree here in the midpoint chart of the two. This is the last one I added in. This will be the Mars return of July the 3rd, which I talked earlier about. Just thought this was really again showing the same theme with Juno here at the 4th house cusp. Juno, naturally the asteroid of working together, of partnership, of supporting one another. It's the idea of many pillars are necessary to hold a big roof. Thank you so much for joining and listening, and hopefully you had many things fell in place for you, understanding the great historic meaning of that moment we are celebrating now, that really 180 degree turn from what first was celebrated as in this country as a victory to be turned around into something totally of unknown proportions, yet a new vector has been put in motion. Yes, something really big is in the making here. Thank you for being here, joining and listening, and if you liked that, give it a like, and please help by also subscribing. It boosts up the algorithm, so more and more people are really starting to see what I'm publishing. It would be nice to have a few more people who really enjoy what I'm doing. Anyway, I do enjoy even just working for you guys, and let's see where this all goes. Have a good ride, enjoy, even though we have to go through a temporary disruption and difficulty. It's worth it, believe me. Thank you. Talk to you soon. Love you all.